I'll just kind of tell you what I was thinking about doing today, and it's talking a little bit about beauty and the philosophy around beauty and what that means to us, and see if we can kind of come up with some working definitions and parameters, and then talk about our connection to beauty through the sound of our instruments, through the sound of our voices, and a little nitty gritty about that, about kind of the how I think about, as a musician, kind of the work involved with that, kind of how it translates in terms of the work we do as musicians on whatever our instrument is, or really in whatever our expression in life is, whatever our creative expression is in life. I think, Paulo, you're not only your expression um, as a musician, but also as a software engineer, and Alicia, not only your expression as a musician, but also your expression as your work in as human rights and with your business and in your, I think beauty manifests in a lot of different ways. So, and I'm going to play you some of my favorite examples of beauty. But my a little bit of armchair philosophy, is I've always had this. We've all heard of aesthetics and the pursuit or the study of aesthetics, and as a branch of philosophy, and that's always been kind of wishy-washy to me. And as I am still a student of this and delve deeper into the philosophical thought on this, it's still pretty wishy-washy, it seems like. So let me just read you a little bit of kind of a framework for beauty. And I'm reading this I'll share this link. It's a Stanford Encyclopedia of Aesthetics and Philosophy and Beauty. The nature of beauty is one of the most enduring and controversial themes in Western philosophy, and is, with the nature of art, one of the two fundamental issues in philosophical aesthetics. Beauty has traditionally been counted among the ultimate values, with goodness, truth, and justice. It's a primary theme among ancient Greek, Hellenistic, and medieval philosophers, and was central to the 18th and 19th century thought, as represented in treatments by such thinkers as Shaftesbury, Hutcheson, Hume, Burke, Kant, Schiller, Hegel, Schopenhauer. So it's been this thread of thought all throughout humanity, and as we'll see, some really interesting ideas in the present. But I wanted to see if we could get a little working idea about beauty here. So first I want to just ask you to close your eyes, and when I ask you to think of something that's beautiful, see what comes into mind, hold that image, make note of it. And then just tuck it away for later. We don't even have to tell each other what it is, but just think what that is, something that's beautiful. And as we're thinking along the highways and byways that all the great philosophers have traveled with this idea of beauty, we find that there's kind of a conundrum. And I want to hear what you guys think about this. And if I kind of a lead into the puzzle is this the statement that we've heard: beauty is in the eye of the beholder. And if we hold that truth to be self-evident, I don't know, is it? What do you think about that? Is beauty in the eye of the beholder? Can we think of something that one person might think calls beautiful, and then another person might not be interested in or really perceive it that way.
I would like to say that when I look at social media, there are things that a lot of people agree are beautiful. So there seems to be kind of a collective idea of beauty, and it's often in nature. And that is one observation I've made. And one of the beautiful parts, I would like to say, about social media is that we get the chance to see what other people think are beautiful and maybe stretch our own definitions. I think, yeah, there's certain things, but I think there are generalizations we can make about sunsets, for example, and certain kinds of cloud formations and the certain kind of arc of a tree branch that it'd be hard pressed to find someone who didn't find it beautiful.
Yeah, that's great, Catherine. You bring up lots there.
Yeah, I would say it's a resounding yes to in the eye of the beholder. If you asked what is beauty to someone who is deaf versus someone who is blind versus, you can go on and on and on, and you're going to get a completely different response and experience. Look at babies, you know. I can look at my child and think when they were born, how beautiful, there is no one more beautiful than this child. And someone else can look at your child and go, oh my God, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So there is so much to it.
Yeah.
And how much of your senses are impacted? For me, beauty comes in a variety of ways, and how many of my senses has it impacted?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. That's great. Paulo, any thoughts?
Yeah, I think for me, I think beauty comes from the instrument I play, which is the piano. And there's so many ways, so much music that can be done with the piano. And, some people like it, some people don't. It's all a matter of, like I said, beauty is in the eye and beholder. There's people like Cecil Taylor, there's people like Keith Jarrett, George Winston. I mean, there's a wide variety of music, but I think the more I learn about it, the more beauty I find in learning about it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, and that makes me think. And there can be beauty in, say, like a mathematical formula, something of a kind of exquisite sophistication and abstract that only maybe a couple people understand, but it's a beautiful thing. Yeah. Any other thoughts, Mike or Camilla?
When I was trying to think of something that everyone might find objectively beautiful, the only thing that, like, I guess nature came to mind, like Catherine was pointing out, but also just like love came to mind. And I think, I don't know that anyone wouldn't find like pure and genuine love to be not beautiful, but I don't think anything else can be that uniting. Everything else probably is very much in the eye of the beholder.
And we're all touching on kind of these branches of the philosophy of ways to understand it. Like, again, like kind of these roads that folks have been traveling for centuries to try to, well, what is it subjective or is it objective? Is love the ultimate reflection of beauty? Is the yearning for beauty a reflection of our, the connection with the eternal? Kind of all these ideas. Nature as an objective connection to beauty, or the eternal as a. And I don't have answers to any of these questions. But these are our travels, and I think especially for us artists, these are the waters we, the paths we travel in, and the waters we swim in and explore. And having a kind of a knowledge of that and vocabulary, and to kind of think about it. Think about, well, how is this? Because I feel like we traffic in beauty. That's our job. We're beautyists. We're beauticians. I want to share with you this is just kind of one thread of thought, but it's really interesting, and and I invite you to go back. This is a 15-minute TED Talk. I'm just going to play the first two, and it kind of lays out, I think, what we've been talking about here and then you can go back and check out the rest of it. So this is a TED Talk by a philosopher by the name of Dennis Dutton, who had a really interesting life and teaching and travel and study. So yeah, let's check out like the first 2 minutes of this.
Is beauty. Delighted to be here and to talk to you about a subject dear to my heart, which is beauty. I do the philosophy of art, aesthetics, actually for a living. I try to figure out intellectually, philosophically, psychologically, what the experience of beauty is, what sensibly can be said about it, and how people go off the rails in trying to understand it. Now, this is an extremely complicated subject, in part because the things that we call beautiful are so different. I mean, just think of the sheer variety. A baby's face, Berlioz's Harold in Italy, movies like The Wizard of Oz or the plays of Chekhov, a Central California landscape, a Hokusai view of Mount Fuji, Der Rosenkavalier, a stunning match-winning goal in a World Cup soccer match, Van Gogh's Starry Night, a Jane Austen novel, Fred Astaire dancing across the screen. This brief list includes human beings, natural landforms, works of art, and skilled human actions. An account that explains the presence of beauty in everything on this list is not going to be easy. I can, however, give you at least a taste of what I regard as the most powerful theory of beauty we yet have. And we get it not from a philosopher of art, not from a postmodern art theorist or a bigwig art critic. No, this theory comes from an expert on barnacles and worms and pigeon breeding. And you know who I mean, Charles Darwin. Of course, a lot of people think they already know the proper answer to the question, what is beauty?
So I'm just going to leave it there. And let me send you this link here in the chat, and then you can just open up that window if you want to go back and watch the rest of that. And I mean, one of the things that's so intriguing about this, the thought that Dutton goes on to present, is how beauty is kind of it's something we need to survive. It's something we need as human beings to function and live and survive. And there's something that's really kind of connecting and beautiful about that idea. It resonates with me in a certain way to think, wow, this is how deep this is. This is just a part of who we are as human beings, what we need, and what's helped us survive and maybe continue to survive. Maybe this is what we need even more now. So that's kind of a little bit of the groundwork. I just wanted to touch on some of those bigger ideas, some of those broader ideas, and get us thinking about those, and then we can go, to continue to follow those threads and see how folks have been thinking about this and grappling with some of these ideas. So one of the things I think about in my own study now, to think of, in my discipline as a musician, is having a model for beauty, having a model for sound and expression, and kind of collecting those things. So I wanted to share with you a few of just a little tour of recordings. I had some images, I had some artwork. Well, yeah, I can share some of that with you, I think. Let's see. Well, as we move into this idea of, kind of collecting, and they can be experiences, memories, and they can be things from nature. And, for me, more kind of more directly as a saxophonist, there's inspiring musicians and recordings. And I talk with my students about this in having this kind of personal collection of beauty, artifacts of beauty, And so I just want to share with you a couple that have remained with me kind of over the years. I still go back to them. And so we'll listen to a little bit of music here. This first track is from Charlie Parker. And this is a recording he did of an old standard called Embraceable You. And the recording's not very good, and he's a little out of tune. And he doesn't even play the melody. But it's a thing of beauty. And it's so I'll just play a little bit of this for you. So some of the things I just so love about that is there's kind of a whimsy to it. There's a real relaxed, kind of effortless characteristic of it. There's just the complete mastery, there's the brilliance of this man. As this young man coming through, that's just, spellbinding to this day. And I've heard that hundreds of times, And then as I get older too, and I think, I think of him as a young black man in America in the 40s and 50s as an artist, and what that must have been like. And my appreciation just even, grows even deeper just as I age and reflect and live life, So, and then that becomes part of the beauty of that for me. So I'm gonna play. I'll show you this list I have, and I'll just play you a couple other things from this. I can share you this link to Spotify. I'm just all over Spotify listening. I've listened to so much more music in the last year or two. I don't know if this platform's a good thing or not, but here I just got to play a couple notes of this. So this is, as I play flute, so I'm always working on my flute sound. It's one of the hardest things to get, is a good flute sound. So this is my model of an amazing flute sound. This is Jean-Pierre Rampal playing a Bach sonata in E flat major. So just a little bit of the opening is of this. It's glorious. So that that gave me a chill right there. Hearing that, I'm just like, oh my God, it's so amazing. So I try to play along with that, and it's just like you can imagine learning to walk, it's just, and that's one of the things I think, like for us as musicians, like we do this thing of transcribing to learn what it feels like to be in that space of mastery, in that space of beauty and development, and kind of work. And that's kind of one of the things that wanted to get to kind of at the end of this was just a little bit of the work involved and the discipline, you know. So just some of the other things that I put in this beauty bucket here. This new recording by Ron Miles that just came out on Blue Note, were just so thrilling, and it's so beautiful. This recording of Miles Davis, Flamenco Sketches. This is this group by this European trio, Jan Garbarek, Berto Gismonti, and Charlie Hayden. It's one of my favorite groups. A beautiful trio, how they play, the sound of the group. It's saxophone and guitar and bass. It's just gorgeous. John Hassel is this electronic musician that I just discovered. I wanted to play, I just want to hang out with you guys and listen to all this music, but I'll share this with you, and I will play this because this is John Coltrane playing My One and Only Love. And when I think of a beautiful sound on the tenor saxophone, I always go back to this recording. He recorded this in the 60s, at the height of when he and his quartet were just really pushing boundaries in so many ways. And then in the kind of midst of that, he goes into the studio and records these ballads, which is, again, so when you kind of learn the context around, you learn more about the life of the artist that inspires you. And I think that's important to that context. It becomes even more beautiful, whoa. So here's a little bit of John Coltrane's playing My One and Only Love. Man, every time, amazing. And Catherine, I see what a great question is. What is the opposite of beauty? And is there a place for that in art? What do you think?
I think there has to be, because there's so many roles for art. Art has a lot of jobs to do in our world, in our connection to each other as a species. The artists do have to express, and I'm not saying that there's not beauty in darkness, but there are parts that are dark that it's very difficult to find the beauty, I think. I think there's some things that are just so ugly that you can't call it beautiful. I don't know what that is. And I got to tell you, John, I've never explored these questions. I'm a science teacher. And so the idea to just sit with what is the answer, I don't know. But I feel like in this world of yin yang opposites, there has to be some balance to this, and that an artist should be fearless in exploring what's not beautiful. And I think as a vocalist, this is a challenge, because a lot of us think we need to sound pretty, and we need to not be afraid to find the grit and nasty of some things that are going on in the world and pointing it out. So that's where I'm sitting at the moment, thinking about something I've never thought about in my life.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. And what a great question. And one of those fundamental questions is, is there a place for what is the opposite of beauty, and is there a place for that in art? And yeah, absolutely. There has to be. There's life. It's a part of life. It's a part of our experience. Death, all of the injustice, all of the hatred, fear. This is all part of a human experience, right? And we're part of our. So what is our jobs of artists? So then where is your compass, and where is your relation to that, and what are you expressing? And these are all questions that we all get to think about, maybe, or we don't think about, and we just kind of do our thing. Any other thoughts on this from the rest of you guys?
Well, I don't know exactly if I can say this eloquently because that's such an interesting question to think about. But like what came to mind is that if something is genuine in art, then I think it's beautiful, even if it's expressing something that might be the opposite of beauty, if that makes sense. I think if it's genuine to the artist, then it must be beautiful because it's expressing something. Maybe to me, beauty means expression and like honest expression. I don't know. That art could be the opposite of beautiful if it's genuine. That's my thought.
You know, I think there has to be a balance between, and I think of it as a darkness and light. So in how you resolve, it's either light to dark or dark to light. There's some beauty in it. It's just a different way of thinking, but some people think dark is beauty, while other people think light is beauty. So it's just the way of how you perceive things.
And I also think attention and release as a, kind of another, Catherine, you mentioned the yin and yang, and light and dark, tension and release, chaos and order, control, out of control. And then as we're talking about this, then I think, then there's this connection to craft, because there's an element, if we're thinking of work as a musician, work as a composer, working as a dancer, as a writer, as an architect, there's these elements of craft. There's these elements of learning and developing, and so I feel like I kind of keep going down a narrow path to get to this, because these are all these questions that come up, right? What's the nature of art? What about things that aren't beautiful? And don't those need to be expressed? And do I have to be able, that's all these things that come up. But as I go down this road of craft and thinking of my particular instrument, then I'm getting to kind of these practicalities that I wanted to talk a little bit about. And this discipline is part of the world of an artist. And the nitty gritty, the practice, the hard work, that manifests in different ways depending what your expression is in life, I guess. So for saxophonists, and I'll just share with you a little of the routine that's involved so that I can aspire to that recording of John Coltrane. I know from reading about his life and his practice, this is a guy who would fall asleep with the horn in his mouth because he'd been practicing all day. Can you imagine? Or he would come to the dinner table with this horn. I'm like, come on, that's a little much, isn't it? But there's these things that we do on the instrument. There's these physical aspects of this particular discipline. And it's individual for guitar, piano, voice. For me, it's a lot of long tones. It's a lot of and it's a lot of breath. And then it becomes, why don't I feel like my breath isn't good? Oh, I need to go exercise. Well, how come I don't feel like exercising? Well, because I've just been like eating like shit, so I just don't feel like it. And I'm not sleeping well. So, so then the sound becomes connected for me to all these other things. And it's kind of like the saxophones. I say there's all the saxophones playing me. And I think this is one of the beautiful things about having music, having art, having these expressions in our life, and it goes back to that TED Talk, to think, maybe this is so powerful in our lives because it's just helping us be human beings. It's helping us how to figure out how to move through life with knowing that we're going to be losing the ones that we love, that knows that we will be, our time will come to, that there's enormous injustice and hatred and division and fear around us. But if we can have some beauty to move through in our lives and be agents of beauty, that can be a way to be a human being. And I think that's kind of where I wanted to get to tonight. And just a little bit of to bring this into the picture, because in the day in and day out and the nuts and bolts, it's like, if I can bring that to my practice, kind of that context of like, oh, how am I doing these long tones again? Here comes that scale again, or whatever it is, and kind of finding that motivation. That helps me kind of center in my practice a little more. So those are some of the thoughts and things I wanted to share with you today, and I'd love to have some more discussion and hear your guys' ideas about any of that's come up for you.
One thing I've been reflecting on a lot, like talking about with friends, is like, and it gets into where you were talking about like the craft. And I think maybe because of academia, or maybe just the nature of how things are evolving, I've been thinking about like jazz for sport versus like artistry, and like where the line is, and when does the technical capacity like override the genuine artistic expression. And I think I find that what I find most beautiful might not be the most technically like amazing thing that's like a feat of technical capacity or something, but I don't know, I don't know the answer, but I've been trying to figure out if there's a line and like where that line is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there is kind of an athleticism. There can be to art, and in general. Like I think of like one of my favorite painters is Salvador Dali, and one of the things I really just kind of revel in is just the sheer chops of this guy. He had some chops. Like some of the stuff he could paint, they're so weird, and like, how did he do that? And I think it's so some of those questions, I absolutely know what you're talking about, and it's just kind of interesting to be able to have different ways to relate to things,
Yeah, and I think there is like beauty in having amazing technical capacity and being able to just like play a crazy 16th note thing. Like that's beautiful that someone has the capacity to do that. But maybe like, I don't know, I think of like plugging in licks versus like genuinely like playing something. I guess that's where I'm trying to figure out how I feel about it.
Mm-hmm.
I might be kind of simple because I'm still new and innocent and maybe ignorant. But But I kind of have two goals, maybe three, when I go out to listen to a musician that I would love to be able to have the capacity to induce in other people. When I go out, I want to have at least one moment of absolute engagement and excitement where I'm just surprised or something. I would love to have one moment where I get goosebumps and one moment where my shoulders drop, where I'm just so relaxed that all of the tension in my neck goes away. And it might be because I approach the world like a Labrador retriever, but I will always check in with where I'm experiencing what I'll call beauty, but those are different kinds of beauty in my body. And so I don't know if it's technical gymnastics that make my brain pop. And I don't know if it's just the way a person breathes when they're using their instrument that makes me get goosebumps. I don't know where the words are that make those things happen, but I know when it happens and I feel it in my body. It's like this ingrained biological response that I have that just happens.
Yeah, we goosebumps. Yeah, and we can have real physical reactions to things. And I was thinking both with Camilla and Catherine too about intention. So kind of what's the artist's intention? So Camilla, to your point, like, you know, that's something I think about. Like I try to check, like, well, what's my intention? Because what am I in charge of? Well, when I'm playing or whatever. And then Catherine, to your point about, you know, kind of what is your state of mind when you're coming to something? And then we, you know, because that's, where are you at? What's your state of mind? And then all these other kind of variables when we were first started talking about subjectivity and those kinds of things. Yeah, there's lots to think about. Alicia?
Yeah, you know, I'm sitting here reflecting. I travel a lot. I've had that it's a blessing. It's a gift that I've been given to be able to travel into many areas. And I am not good with language, period. Languages are not my thing. And I can't tell you how many times I've been in a situation and I've had a reflection of a conversation that we had many years ago, because I was sharing with you my insecurities of the language of music and the beauty of it and the awe that I have for you and other musicians who really have fine-tuned your craft, because I don't read a stitch of music, you know. And I was talking to you about it and feeling that insecurity, and you said, Alicia, you know, what you do is beautiful. Don't worry about that. You don't have to know how to read and write. Just do what you do because you're able to communicate to people. And that lesson in that moment has been able to take me to many, many different places where I'm in different countries. And the beauty of that conversation about music, the beauty of music and language of music, is that I can be anywhere on the planet and communicate. Don't speak a word of whatever. Yeah. And yet we have the gift of being able to communicate with others because of music, because of this language that's so universal. Yeah, so that's where I went with that. Thank you, John.
Wow, thank you for that. Thanks for sharing that. It's really fantastic. Yeah, it's amazing what we're all part of, that we can, you know, that we have this, that this has come into our lives, you know. I'm tremendously grateful for just, yeah, the longer I'm here on this planet, and I'm really glad this go around had some music in it. Brian, it's great to see you. And you've been hearing all of this stuff going on. Is there anything that's been coming to mind?
John, do you listen to any Brian Eno?
Yeah, I do. I can't say I'm super you know, conversant or you know, checked out everything, but yeah.
Yeah, you know, I mean, he's sort of a intellectual artist type, but he does a lot of stuff that is different than, I guess, what we've been talking about, which is, you know, you, John, for example, you know, practice your craft and try to express through your horn or whatever. And he creates a lot of things that I think are, you know, beautiful and sort of intellectually interesting, that are kind of made mechanically.
Yeah.
Like he kind of has, or one aspect of his creation, I guess, is sort of like create systems that sort of automatically create art, as opposed to like pulling it directly out of flesh and blood. I don't know exactly what my point is here, other than beauty comes from a lot of different angles. And
there's a lot of eyes beholding it.
Yeah. So, I mean, if we're intellectualizing, we might muse like, you know, I mean, does it have to come out of flesh and blood, or can it kind of come sort of accidentally? I mean, he creates stuff intentionally, but he factors in just some chance about exactly how it's going to turn out. It's not like he planned it or wrote it. It's kind of, he sets it up to sort of happen by accident.
Yeah, and there's you know, and here we go now on another kind of path of expression and art, and you know, it's interesting to look at the ways that John Cage was thinking, and some of the things that he was presenting, and the questions that were being asked, and along those lines, what you're talking about, Brian. And the thought comes to mind too, of because I'm surrounded by like some blinking lights with pedals and computer stuff, and it's an amazing palette in you know, in sounds and ways to that I'm so excited about. There's just some really, gosh, amazing things. So all good questions.
But I have to say, you know, like as interesting as some of these constructs can be, I think like just seeing somebody live, like just create on the spot, that's kind of hard to beat.
It's the human voice.
Yeah, I mean, as interesting as things can be constructed on your computer and pushed out through the internet or whatever, you know, we need people that can like just do it sort of spontaneously in front of us.
Yeah. And I think about that, and I think about, I mean, so I teach at a university, and these young people come about to start a study, and it's a lot of money, and parents come to me like they're kind of pale, and their like eyes are really wide, and like, it's like, and to say, you know, this kind of what this pursuit is, and what this means, and what this is as a path through life, and is music going to go away? Is art going to go away? And you know, kind of talking about these ideas and the enduring need for this, and it's different. This is kind of another.
I don't know if it's the bubble I'm living in, but I don't see the desire for watching people create live in front of you going away, in spite of all the amazing constructions people are doing on their computers.
Yeah. and that streaming can't replace that very human act of gathering, of community. And that's the other thing I think about the phenomena of music. And I don't have these aren't here with me, but I have these. Well, maybe we can kind of wrap up with this idea. I'll ask you guys if you know, as archaeologists go and dig and they find these instruments and what they appear to be the oldest instruments. Does anybody know how far back that goes? What are the oldest instruments that have been found so far? So in terms of instruments that they found these flutes made out of bone that date back to 40,000 years. And these were in the caves around Italy and Germany that kind of were all covered with ice up and back and forth, and this was uncovered. And I was doing some research a couple of years back and came across this, and it's just when these 3D printers were coming, there was a lot on campus, and I had found out that 3D printers print a particular file format. And I just thought, I said, well, does anybody scan these? And could I print one of these out? And sure enough, they had scanned these bone flutes from Cave Bear. And I downloaded the file and I took it over to my friend in one of the labs and he printed it out. I have it at school. It's this little looks like a little bone with some holes in it. And it's just mind blowing. I'm holding this in my hand and I'm trying to make, I haven't really gotten sound out of it. I think it's a little busted up or something, but just to kind of hold that, and I put it in my pocket and I walk around with my Cave Bear flute, but that's just astounding to me that this need to express ourselves with sound somehow, or to whatever the function is, might not be expression, it might be in terms of survival, hunting, communal expression of warning, there's all these, it's so fascinating. So then you think about, well, what bird song, is bird song the first kind of music? And then you get into analyzing bird song and how the brain development and all this language, the connection between music and language, and which came first, because music uses big parts of the brain that the language and the music parts of the brain are really, they're using the same parts to lighten up.
I just wanted to thank you so much for doing this masterclass. This has been so much fun to just engage with you guys on these topics.
Thanks, you guys. What a fun night. So good to see all of you.